I was slapped at my own engagement party, by my father, in front of 60 people. No one stepped in, no one apologized. And that was the day I stopped being the obedient daughter and started becoming the woman who rebuilt her life from the ashes. This isn't just a story about a slap, it's about silent betrayal inside a family, about choosing yourself when no one else will, and about delivering justice without ever raising your voice. If you've ever been overlooked, expected to sacrifice for those deemed more worthy, stay with me. This story is for you. I used to think that day would be the most beautiful day of my life. The garden was glowing with soft lights and flickering candles, every table dressed in white linen and lined with fresh roses. The music was elegant, floating just above the hum of laughter and clinking glasses. My fiancé, Brandon, hadn't stopped smiling since we arrived. He looked at me like I was magic. And for a moment I believed I was. People congratulated us, complimented my dress, toasted to our future. I caught glimpses of myself in glass surfaces and thought, this is it. This is the kind of happiness people write about. This is what I've waited years to feel. Then they arrived. My parents and my older brother Ethan entered the venue 30 minutes late. No call, no apology. My mother wore her signature pearls like armor. My father's jaw was already clenched before he even made eye contact. Ethan? He was already half drunk, his tie loosened, swaggering like the night belonged to him. The air shifted. Brandon leaned in, whispered, "Ignore it. This is your night." But how could I, when my father was stalking across the room with a storm in his eyes? He stopped a foot from me, eyes darting toward Brandon's arm draped gently over my waist. "We need to talk," he hissed, low and sharp. "In the middle of my engagement party?" I asked, keeping my voice calm. "You're embarrassing this family." That's when he grabbed my wrist. Brandon stepped in. "Sir, with all due respect." "Stay out of it," my father barked, shoving him back with one forceful hand. The music died. All eyes turned. "You selfish brat," my father spat. "You owe your brother everything, and this party, you don't deserve it." My cheeks flamed, my vision blurred. I tried to pull my arm back, but his grip tightened. "Give him the damn money, Savannah, or I swear—" And then he slapped me. Right there, open palm, full force, in front of 60 guests. My earring flew off, my head whipped sideways. For a second the world stood still. My mother gasped, not in horror, but like she was inconvenienced. Ethan snorted, took a sip of his drink. Brandon rushed to me, cupping my face with trembling hands. "You just hit your daughter," he said, his voice shaking with rage. "She brought it on herself," my father growled. "She's ungrateful. We raised her, and this is how she repays us." I stood frozen, my cheek burning, my heart heavier than it had ever been. And then I knew. Right there, in that deafening silence, I knew something inside me had snapped. The part of me that kept trying to earn their love, their approval, their pride, died in that moment. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I turned to Brandon and whispered, "Let's go." We left without another word. No explanation, no goodbye, only silence. And yet behind me, I could feel the storm beginning to rise, the whispers, the scandal, the judgment. But I didn't care, because something else had risen too, and they had no idea what was coming next. The morning after, I sat at the edge of my bed, staring at the bruise that bloomed across my cheekbone like a memory that wouldn't let go. It wasn't the pain that hurt most, it was the silence. Not a single call, not a single message, no apology, nothing from my mother, nothing from my father, nothing from Ethan. It was as if the slap never happened, as if humiliating me in front of 60 people was simply forgettable. Brandon moved gently around the kitchen, making coffee like it was any other Sunday. He didn't ask how I was. He didn't need to. The tightness in his jaw, the way his shoulders curled forward slightly, told me he was carrying my hurt alongside his own rage. He placed a mug in front of me and said softly, "You don't deserve this. You never did." I nodded but said nothing. What could I say? That I was raised in a house where loyalty only flowed one way? That for years I believed love meant silence and sacrifice? That morning something shifted, because I remembered something my grandfather once told me before he passed. You don't owe them your future just because they gave you a past. He had said it in a soft voice, almost apologetic, like he knew the war that would one day come. That's when I stood up and walked to my desk. It had been locked for years, the drawer tucked under folders and books I no longer opened. My fingers trembled slightly as I turned the key. And there it was, a single manila envelope with my name on it, in my grandfather's handwriting. I opened it slowly. Inside, property documents, a deed, a signature. I wasn't just the recipient of a wedding fund. I was, in full legal terms, the owner of the house my parents had lived in for 2 decades. They didn't know. I had forgotten, in truth, buried it under years of trying to belong. But he hadn't forgotten. He'd transferred the title to my name before his death. Quietly, carefully. As I stared at the documents, something inside me settled. Not rage, not vengeance, clarity. I had spent years letting them take pieces of me, time, energy, money, love. But this was mine. And for the first time in a long time, I felt something that almost resembled peace. They had taken so much. But now, I could choose what to take back. I sat on the floor of my apartment, the deed spread across my knees like a secret that had waited years to be remembered. Savannah Moore, sole owner. My grandfather had signed it 3 weeks before he passed. I could see his familiar, meticulous penmanship, steady even in his final days. I traced the letters with my fingertips, feeling the weight of what they meant. He didn't trust them. That much was clear now. He trusted me. I remembered the day he handed me the envelope. He had pulled me aside after dinner, asked if I could help him organize some documents, but instead, he gave me just one. "Don't open it yet," he said. "You'll know when it's time." I hadn't known. Not until now. I took a deep breath and called the one person I knew would understand the legal language better than I ever could. Lenora Fields, my grandfather's old attorney, answered after 2 rings. "Savannah Moore," she said warmly. "It's been a while." I explained everything, the slap, the silence, the envelope. She didn't interrupt once. When I finished, she paused and said simply, "You have full legal authority. The house is yours. Always has been." The words echoed in my mind. The house is yours. The same house where I had cried as a child when my mother told me I was too dramatic. Where I hid in closets to avoid Ethan's tantrums. Where I tried so hard to be perfect, to earn a seat at a table that was never meant for me. And now, that house was mine. Lenora asked if I wanted to proceed with any actions. I told her not yet. Not because I was hesitant, but because I wanted them to see it coming. I wasn't going to scream. I wasn't going to post anything on social media. I was going to let them feel the same slow unraveling they made me endure for years, piece by piece. I got up from the floor, smoothed the creases on the papers, and slipped them back into the envelope. Then I reached into my desk and pulled out a box of stationery, ivory with gold trim, something I'd bought for wedding thank you notes. But today it would serve a different purpose. I drafted a formal letter, elegant, professional, distant. It simply stated that due to a recent review of legal ownership, the residence at 48 Elmwood Lane was now undergoing a transition of deed acknowledgement. There was no threat, no emotion, just fact. I sealed it with wax and mailed it first class. Let the truth arrive the way they always delivered their cruelty, unexpectedly and without apology. It arrived 2 days later. I was sipping tea at the kitchen table when my phone rang. The screen lit up with a familiar name, Mom. I let it ring twice before I answered. "Ava," she said. Her voice wasn't calm. It was too sharp, too clipped, like a lid barely holding down boiling water. "What is this letter we received?" "Oh," I replied casually. "You mean the ownership notice?" "You sent us a legal document about our own house?" she snapped. "It's not yours," I said evenly. "It's mine. Grandpa left it to me." There was a long, jagged silence, then a breathy, nervous laugh. "You're joking." "I'm not." I could hear her footsteps pacing on hardwood. "We've lived here for over 20 years. You can't just—" "I can, actually. And I haven't done anything yet. I just thought you should be aware of the reality." Her voice shifted, dipped into something softer, something that sounded almost like fear. You're not planning to evict us, are you? I took a sip of tea. I'm planning to give you the same consideration you gave me at my engagement party. When Dad hit me and you said nothing. When Ethan laughed. She didn't respond. You watched me get humiliated. You said I brought it on myself. Now she spoke, fast and desperate. Your father was under stress. He didn't mean to. He meant it, I said firmly. And you meant to stay quiet. She started crying, or pretending to. What about your father's health? He's not well. We have memories here. This is our home, Ava. And what about me? I asked, feeling my voice sharpen. What about the future I was building? The wedding fund you wanted me to give up so Ethan could have a resort wedding? You're punishing us. I'm reminding you, I said, that everything has consequences. Then her voice turned bitter, venomous. You're ungrateful. We gave you everything, and this is how you repay us? You selfish little... I hung up, not with rage, but with calm. I had nothing left to say, and she had nothing left to take. That evening, Brandon came home to find me sitting at the table, the envelope Mom returned now torn open beside me. He didn't ask what happened. He just pulled out a chair and sat beside me in silence. You okay? He finally asked. I nodded. I think I am. We sat together, quiet but strong. And in that quiet, I realized something. They were expecting me to scream, to plead, to beg. But the softest actions sometimes echo the loudest. And this gold-embossed envelope, elegant, silent, final, was the loudest thing I'd ever sent. The countdown had begun, and I wasn't going to stop it. They invited me like nothing happened. A formal RSVP card arrived in the mail 3 weeks later. Elegant cursive, pale blue envelope, gold foil trim. Ethan and Lydia. The wedding of the year. My attendance requested. My presence expected. Expected, after everything. I don't know what made me go. Maybe it was curiosity. Maybe it was defiance. Maybe I just wanted to see their faces one last time before I changed everything. Brandon came with me. We dressed sharp. He wore a midnight blue suit. I wore a white pantsuit, not bridal, but bold. Clean lines, high collar, a soft silk pocket square. I looked powerful, and I felt it. When we entered the ballroom, I could feel the eyes, some familiar, some strangers, but they all lingered on me longer than they should have. Ethan saw me first. He raised a glass and smirked like he'd already won something. You made it, he said, stepping forward, eyes glinting. Of course, I replied smoothly. Wouldn't miss it. He leaned in, his voice low, mocking. So you're still sulking over that little party incident? I smiled. Not at all. Actually, I came to celebrate. The ceremony was beautiful, well-funded, overdone, staged like a luxury magazine spread. The bride walked in draped in lace. The guests gasped. The vows were scripted perfection. During the reception, the MC invited the maid of honor, then the best man. And then, Ethan himself took the mic. I just want to thank my family, he said, voice slurred just enough to be noticeable. Especially my sister Savannah for showing up tonight. There were chuckles. I held my glass without blinking. Family means everything, he added. And some people forget that. When the room applauded politely, he turned to walk past me. Glad you could finally show your face, he muttered. I stepped forward, slow and steady. I leaned in, my voice calm, deliberate. I hope you enjoy your honeymoon, I said softly. He blinked. What's that supposed to mean? Because when you get back, I whispered, Mom and Dad won't have a house to welcome you to. His smirk vanished. He stared at me, eyes narrowing. You wouldn't. I took a sip of champagne. I already did. He didn't speak again. Not to me. Not for the rest of the night. Brandon squeezed my hand under the table. We danced once, slowly. We smiled at strangers. We clinked glasses with acquaintances. And then we left, gracefully, quietly. I never looked back. Not at the ballroom, not at the stage, not at my brother. Because I had already given them my final toast, and it tasted like justice. The letter was posted on their front door in bold red. Property sold. Vacate within 14 days. I didn't deliver it myself. I didn't need to. The developer I sold it to was efficient, clinical even. They planned to demolish the old house and rebuild a modern complex. My childhood home would be gone, and I was okay with that. 2 days later, my phone rang. The caller ID flashed. Dad. I didn't answer. Then Mom. Then Ethan. Then blocked numbers, texts, emails, even a knock at my door one evening. I let them stand there. Brandon stood behind me in the hallway as I looked through the peephole. My mother, wrapped in a cardigan. My father, stiff and pale. Ethan, sunglasses on like it hid the truth. I opened the door, but only halfway. "You think this is fair?" Dad barked. "You think this is justice?" "No," I said calmly. "I think it's balance. You're destroying your own family." "You did that," I said, "when you slapped me in front of everyone, when you made me feel like I owed Ethan my future, when you called me ungrateful for protecting what was mine." My mother stepped forward, trembling. "We raised you, we gave you a roof, food, education, and I repaid you with silence for years," I said. "But you mistook that silence for weakness." Ethan scoffed. "This is about revenge, isn't it?" I locked eyes with him. "No, it's about reclaiming space. You took everything. I'm just taking back what was mine." They begged. For the first time in my life, they truly begged, but I had no more space left inside me to hold their apologies, especially when they still weren't apologies. They wanted to stay until Ethan and Lydia returned from their honeymoon. They wanted time. They wanted pity. I gave them a moving checklist instead. 14 days, not a minute more. As I closed the door, my mother's voice cracked through the hallway. "You're not our daughter anymore." I paused, then turned and said, "I never was, not really." I watched from the second-story window as they drove away. Their lives packed into Ethan's SUV, cardboard boxes stacked behind old pillows and plastic bins. There was no satisfaction in that moment, no cinematic triumph, just quiet. But it was a quiet I owned, and that meant everything. 3 months passed. The house was gone. The land where I once played hopscotch, cried in the rain, stood in doorways to beg for love, it was now just gravel and rebar. The developer moved fast, faster than I expected. It was strange how something that held so many ghosts could vanish like mist. I thought I'd feel relief, maybe even peace, but mostly I felt unfinished. Trauma doesn't pack up and leave just because the paperwork's done. It lingers. It whispers at night. It makes you question if you went too far or not far enough. One rainy Tuesday, a letter arrived. It was addressed in my mother's handwriting, mailed, not emailed, as if guilt needed postage. I didn't open it at first. I left it on the kitchen counter for 2 days, beside the fruit bowl and a pair of forgotten keys. Every time I walked by, I'd glance at it, wondering, fearing, knowing. Finally, I sat down and opened it with the same caution you give a wound that never fully healed. There was no greeting, no "Dear Savannah," just a stream of sentences that bled bitterness. "We raised you. We loved you. You're destroying your family out of spite. You sold our home, your home, and now your father's health is declining. You've made your point. Are you proud of yourself?" I stared at the page. No apology, no accountability, just more blame. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I walked to the backyard, letter in hand. Brandon followed silently. He didn't need to ask. I placed the letter in our fire pit. He handed me the lighter, and without ceremony, without a word, I set it ablaze. The paper curled, blackened, vanished. And something in me did too, something heavy, something inherited. That night, as we lay in bed, Brandon whispered, "You did the right thing." "I know," I said. The next morning, my phone rang. It was a name I hadn't seen in years, Gregory Harper, CEO of a prominent consulting firm I had interned with in college. "Savannah," he said warmly, "I've been following your work with the housing nonprofit. Your latest project on equity access? Brilliant. We're opening a new branch in Seattle. I want you to lead it." I froze. "You're offering me an executive role?" "Full control, full salary, full trust." I looked around our apartment, at the table where I once cried, at the walls that had seen me unravel and rebuild. "Yes," I said, "I'm ready." That weekend, Brandon and I packed boxes, but not in sorrow, in ceremony. Every taped box felt like a closed chapter. every labeled bag a step toward something freer. As we pulled away from our parking lot that final morning, I didn't feel loss. I felt light. Because what burned in that fire wasn't just a letter, it was the last weight they had over me. And now, I was truly free. Seattle welcomed me like a long-lost friend. Gray skies, clean air, a kind of quiet that didn't press down on you but wrapped around you like a soft coat. I settled into my new role quickly. The office was modern, the team warm and curious, and the vision clear. But I knew I needed more than a job. I needed a purpose that made sense of the pain. So I began building something new. A place. A space. For girls like me. For women told to stay silent. To be small. To serve the family at all costs. For daughters whose voices were only welcomed when they echoed the dreams of others. I called it the second room. Because in every home I'd ever known, I was never allowed in the first one. Never truly seen. Never truly heard. This shelter would be different. A sanctuary for women betrayed by blood and bound by shame. Single mothers, estranged daughters, survivors of emotional inheritance. We opened with 15 beds, a kitchen run by volunteers, and therapy rooms lined with books and soft lighting. On the day of the grand opening, I stood on stage in front of donors, staff, and a few brave women who had chosen this place as their new beginning. I cleared my throat, and then I spoke. I was beaten on the night of my engagement, not just physically, but spiritually, emotionally. That moment didn't break me. It revealed me, it showed me who they were, and it forced me to remember who I was. I paused. We are not what they did to us. We are what we build from it. There were tears. There were claps. There was breath held and released. Later that night, a young woman approached me. She looked barely 20. Her eyes were wide with something I knew too well, hurt and hope woven tight together. My dad made me give up my college fund for my brother's startup, she said. They said it was family duty. I thought I was selfish for questioning it, but now I don't. I hugged her. Not because I had the answers, but because sometimes, just knowing you're not alone is enough to start healing. A few weeks later, I flew back to my childhood town, just for one afternoon. A real estate visit brought me near the old neighborhood. I didn't plan to stop, but curiosity has a quiet pull, and so I drove past it. Where the old house once stood, there was now steel framing and fresh concrete. A new shelter, another second room, was rising from the ruins, paid for, in part, by the very wedding fund they once tried to take from me. I didn't get out of the car. I didn't need to. Because this wasn't about revenge anymore. It was about legacy, and mine would not be written in pain. It would be built in hope. For every daughter who was told she didn't deserve a seat at the table, I built her another room. And this time, the door stays open. I didn't reclaim that house for revenge. I sold it, to build a place where women like me could finally begin again, with dignity. I used to think silence meant weakness. But I've learned, sometimes silence is the loudest answer you'll ever give. If you've ever been betrayed by the people who raised you, remember, you're not alone, and you have the right to write the next chapter of your life, on your own terms. If this story touched your heart, subscribe, share the video, and leave a comment below. This is a space for those who dare to heal, even when it starts with heartbreak.